Hello and welcome to Sunday Sermon here on Politics Social. My name is Graham Hughes. Good to have you with us this morning. We've got L Butterfly Effect in the chat. We've got Diz in there as well. Miss Paula Thomas, Harry Flashman, and others. Pete's Music is also in there. And Sid, hello, and Simon, hello. If you'd like to join our friends in the chat, all you need to do is hit the subscribe button, if you can find it, and wait for a minute. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, wait for a minute, and you'll be able to join the conversation. Before we start, I just want to give my, just to acknowledge the horrific events that happened in Australia today. There was a Hanukkah event to celebrate the first night of Hanukkah, and two gunmen, I think, according to reports, started firing on people from a bridge, and at least 10 people have been killed in what can only be described as a massacre on the beach. If you're anything like me, please stay off social media for a few days, because you're going to see TikTok and Instagram and perhaps not Facebook, because you should only see stuff from your friends, but depending on the caliber of your friends, I don't know. Certainly stay off Twitter, because there will be videos circulating which, like I say, if you're anything like me, will fuck you up. So please, for your own sanity, don't go out looking for this stuff. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about techno-feudalism, and I'm going to make an argument to you, and your mileage may vary, as I often say on this channel. I don't know if you're going to agree with me on this or think that I'm talking absolute bollocks. So I'm just getting Hans Gruber into the shot there. But I don't see what we're going through right now as a recession, a cycle, tough times. I think this is a deliberate project by the wealthy to destroy the middle class, to dismantle it entirely and restore the hierarchy, restore feudalism, restore the situation we had over 200 years ago when there was lords and ladies and the king, and they had all the money, and then everybody else was living pretty much fairly equally, which below them in a sort of level of poverty compared with the elites, with the rich. The end goal of this new feudalism, this and of this neo-feudalism, this techno-feudalism, the end goal isn't anything new. This is what they wanted 300 years ago in the feudal system. Dependency. That's what they want. They want economic dependency. But also now they want digital dependency, political dependency. And modern inequality, I would argue, isn't accidental. There is enough resources to go around. There's enough smartphones for everyone who wants a smartphone. There's enough food for everyone who needs food. There is enough resources out there. There's enough fuel for everyone's car. But those resources are not shared equally around the world, even anywhere near equally around the world. But let's talk about what the middle class is, because I meet a lot of people who are not very happy when you call them middle class. They go, no, I'm working class. And you go, how'd you work that out? And they go, oh, well, I've worked all my life. I'm like, no, you haven't worked for 30 years. You've retired and you worked in a bank and you bought your own house for £2.50 in 1968. And now it's worth £500,000. Yeah. I'm looking at that. I'm looking at the situation in your life where you haven't had to work for 30 years and yet you can still buy a new car every 6 months. I'm looking at that and going, well, I don't think you're working class. You might have been when you were born in the 1940s and 50s, and we'll get to that. But now, in your own home that you own, fuck off. You're not. You're just not. But the younger generation coming up, I think we've got a lot of people going the other way. I think we've got a lot of young people who thought they were middle class, but they're not. Because the middle class, it's not just vibes and accents and cultural signifiers. It's not the fact that you say middle class instead of middle class, right? I'm middle class. Okay, put that down on the table right now. I'm not pretending for a moment that I am working class or had a working class upbringing. I did, however, grow up in a working class city and have very close family members who I would regard as being working class. But the sort of core pillars of class, historically, of the middle class is job security, asset ownership, upward mobility, and political voice. I'll come back to this because this is a really important part of my argument here of like why the middle class is dying out. Because let's go through them again. Job security. Do you think that exists for 20-odd-year-olds? No. Asset ownership. Do you think people in their 20s now think they're ever going to own a house unless they're given one by their parents? Nope. Upward mobility? No chance. You've all seen the private school mafia list. I mean, if you want anything, if you want a CEO, if you want a high court judge, if you want an actor to be in your film, if you want a director to be, if you want a writer to write a book, if you want a politician to spout bollocks, whatever you need, you can take them from that list. There's enough of them. So the rest of us, even if we are incredibly talented and unique in what we can do, have a unique set of skills, it doesn't matter. That glass ceiling does exist, not just for women, not just for people who are, from different ethnic backgrounds, not just for people who are different religions, different sexuality, people who are trans, not just for those people, but also for people who, to this point, regarded themselves as the children of a greater God, the white middle class, English speaking, cis het, blah blah blah, male. And the oligarchs are tapping into that in the most grotesque way. But what middle class essentially means is that you have some kind of independence. One moment. Thank you, my love. We're getting a replenishment of the old coffee. It's all good. Yeah, the middle class should mean some degree of independence from both the state, as in you're not reliant on help from the state to just get by every day, but also from your employer. Like you have a degree of independence. Like you don't have to do that job. And that independence of social mobility, that independence of thought is something that today's elites just can't stand. And don't forget, the middle class is quite a new thing. It didn't exist before the World War II, really. The feudal society had rigid class structures. It was pre-industrial Europe. Land ownership was power, and industrial capitalism it initially deepened exploitation, not mobility. It was taking all of the serfs, all of the people living off the land under the lord of the land, the landlords, and putting them in a factory and putting them down a mine. And we got a working class during the Victorian era and or the Industrial Revolution. That started before the Victorian era. Thank you, darling. Just getting a coffee from my wonderful assistant, glamorous assistant. But yeah, the working class started in the 1800s. The middle class didn't really come about till halfway through the 20th century. In the UK, in the US, and other countries around the world, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, places like that. And we need to realize here is that the middle class is a modern creation, and it's not the default by any stretch of the imagination. For hundreds and hundreds of years, we lived where there was a lot of people with very little, and a few people with everything, essentially. And the people down below had to live off the crumbs that fell from the tables of the super fabulously wealthy, the landlords. So the post-World War II settlement was created because Western elites feared fascism, communism, societal collapse, and there was a bargain made, right? We shared our prosperity to secure stability. Strong unions normalized collective power in the 50s and 60s. Mass public housing, expanded ownership. Education was treated as infrastructure, not a commodity. Slums were cleared en masse. Productivity gains broadly were shared through wages. And there was this historically unprecedented, and it'll probably never happen again, middle class expansion. That was the expansion into which most of our parents, or maybe grandparents who are a bit younger, were born into. We weren't born into that. I wasn't born into that. But the elites hated this arrangement because the middle class reduced labor discipline. You couldn't, force people to, the only job that they could possibly have is that job there. The workers could refuse bad jobs. Home ownership reduced fear of being thrown out on the streets if you can't make the rent each week. And then pensions reduced dependency, especially for the older generation, on the younger generation working. Oh, I've got to work because otherwise my granddad or my grandmother will die. Education produced political awareness, and democracy became more people participated in democracy in this country rather than it being a symbolic thing. Because we talk about the working class getting the vote, women getting the votes. But the reality was for a very long time that the only people who could be your representative was some posh toff, was someone who grew up on some part of the landed gentry, grew up on an estate, and not a council estate, a proper lordly estate. And don't forget, until was it 1911, I think, MPs weren't paid, so you could only be an MP if you had the money to do this kind of thing at leisure. And so, as things change in the 40s and 50s and the 60s, we saw a lot more people from what would have been working class backgrounds, but were now middle class backgrounds, doing really well for themselves. Don't forget, we had a run of prime ministers in the last 25 years almost of the 20th century who all went to state school, which is quite remarkable because the first 25 years of this century, everyone went to private school, with the exception of Gordon Brown, ruled for 3 years, never won an election, and Liz Truss, who only ruled for, 48 days, was it? 44 days? I don't know. She killed the Queen, tanked the economy, and now she's on the internet going, the elites are out to get us. Badly reading her auto cue. So then there was this, the neoliberal counter-revolution in the 1970s, which was used. There was this fuel crisis in the 1970s, and that was used as a justification to start dismantling this settlement. Deregulation was framed as freedom, whereas regulation of industries, nationalization of industries was there to help us. That was all frittered away. Union power was deliberately broken in the UK and the US. Wages were decoupled from productivity. You look at a chart, 1979, the year I'm born, is the year that wages and productivity just go in a completely different direction. You have a K straight, well, not K, but you have the wages just stagnate and the productivity goes up and up because of new technologies, because of the computers, internet, all that kind of stuff. And we had the public assets, which were sold off en masse, the telephones, the electricity, the water, the gas, everything you needed to stay alive. But also the trains were sold off. And it's just been an absolute fucking disaster. An absolute disaster in almost every single industry, wherever there is a monopoly. If there's not a monopoly, okay, you can have fair competition and it drives prices down because customers have a choice. In a situation where you don't have a choice, it has to be nationalized. There is no sensible way of doing it except for nationalizing it. But what happened in the 70s is you had the rise of the Chicago School of Economics under Milton Friedman. You also had the rise of this idea of libertarianism. And in a libertarian society, no one wants to pick up the litter. And then they go, oh, maybe we should get together and put our money together and pay someone to pick up the litter. And you're like, yeah, like that's socialism then, isn't it? The thing that you hate, the thing that of which you are most terrified. And they used precarious labor as control. You know, this is where they secure contracts. Contracts have been replaced by the gig economy, 0-hour contracts, faux self-employment, and algorithmic management removes human accountability. It's not our fault you didn't get any jobs today as an Uber driver. It was the algorithm. It's not our fault you made a video on YouTube and it took you days to make and then no one watched it. It's the algorithm. Oh, it's not our fault. And where's the difference? Where's the difference? I ask you, where is the difference between someone who turns up outside the docks at 5 a.m. and the foreman's there going, you, and you can come down. Or the mine, you can come down. The rest of them, you know, they just do something with your day and they go home and drink or, you know, sit there, make themselves a cheese toasty because they've got no work. The difference is this, right? With those miners and those dock workers, if there was no work, they wouldn't work, right? Whereas in the gig economy, you can spend the whole day, you know, driving around in your car. If you're an Uber driver, you know, driving to the airport, driving whatever, you can spend the whole day. If you're a YouTube creator or TikTok creator, making videos and editing them and staying up late, and you do all the work, but you don't get paid. So this is actually a situation now that we have that is worse in some ways than it was before. Don't forget, what were the things that really made the middle class, right? Being able to buy your own house. Do you think anyone in their 20s can buy their own house anymore? Going to university. Have you noticed how the elites, how the oligarchs, how the, you know, Richard Tysers and Nigel Farages of this world keep going on about there's too many kids in university? They never say their kids shouldn't be in university. They say our kids shouldn't be in university. Think about mobility, not just social mobility, but physical mobility. These are the people who want to take away disabled ramps out of buildings and stop disabled people getting on public transport because it's annoying to have to wait for someone in a wheelchair to get on a bus. These are the people who don't want physical mobility of people traveling around Europe and living and working in other countries. They want to keep that for themselves, but for the rest of us, the people who we thought were middle class, we're becoming much more like the working class for this reason. So you've got precarious labor, you've got the fact you're never going to own a house, you've got the fact that loads of people in the middle class are now riddled with mountains of debt, which traditionally was a working class thing to be worrying about. And the fact that so many people, to go with the not owning the house, are renting and are absolutely at the mercy of their landlords or landladies. You don't think this is happening? It fucking is. Like, this is the end game. Destroy the middle class. And all the things that I think of as like, okay, that makes you middle class, are things now that the younger generation don't have opportunities for. They can't do that. They can't go on 2 holidays a year. They can't get on a fucking cruise ship. Don't know what the cruise ship companies are going to do once, you know, there's only 600 people in the world with any money. There you go. You've got the fact that flexibility is just a rebranding of job insecurity. You've got the workers absorbing the volatility once carried by firms. I'll give you another example. You know, in a supermarket, when they do a 2-for-1 offer, right? A lot of the time, those supermarkets will say to the producer, the farmer, right, or the broker from the farm representing the farmers, we're doing a 2-for-1 offer, so we're only going to give you half the amount that we normally give you this month for that produce. And they get away with it because they've got the producer over a barrel. They've got food that's going off that needs to be sold. Fresh fruit and veg needs to be sold. They can't find someone else to sell it to, and the supermarkets know that. And so the power that the rich have over the rest of us is growing like exponentially. Day by day, it is growing. And this is really, really disturbing. We've also got the fact that, I mentioned about people being in debt, which has seen education shift from a public good to a personal investment. No. We need smart people. We need doctors. We need engineers. We need architects. We need people who build stuff, make stuff, create stuff. The creative industries in our country are one of our greatest exports. We punch above our weight in the arts, in movies, in music, in books, in theatre. We do. I'm not embarrassed by that. I'm not embarrassed to say that. But do we get any support? Do we fuck? Student debt delays adulthood and asset accumulation. They're getting to a point now where you're going to start having to pay off your student loan on minimum wage. If you work 40 hours a week for a year on minimum wage now, you should be on about £27,000 a year. And that's the cut-off for having to start paying back a student loan. Yeah. So where it used to be, you'd only have to pay your student loan off if you were earning sort of Brewsters in comparison with your average person. That's not there anymore. It's simply not there anymore. And I think that we live in a fear-based economy where fear replaces loyalty as the organizing principle of work. Why are people working? Because having to step over homeless people on the way to work. And that's the warning from the government, the warning from the oligarchs. Look what happens if you step out of line. It's the warning from Walmart, the warning from McDonald's. Look what happens if you step out of line. It's a warning from Google. Warning from Facebook. Warning from Meta. And Elon Musk. That I'll come to in a moment. And this is a really, really grim situation that we're finding ourselves in with consumer credit, which is substituting for wage growth. So people are just perpetually in debt. I know I am. Mortgage access are restricted while rents are soaring, going up to 1,500 quid a week in places in London. You're just like, how much? How much? What? How could anyone ask for that kind of money? But they do. They fucking do. And then we've got the fact that, the debt suppresses dissent and collective action. Because if you don't make your debt repayment, you're going to owe even more money. Another way of controlling us. Look at the homeless people. Look at what will happen. If you lose your home, look what happens. If you don't pay your rent, look what happens. If you don't make that mortgage repayment. Oh, not that you can have a mortgage anymore. You're too young. We've got this weird bell curve, I guess, of class, where we had working class people born in the 50s who now are very, very comfortably well off, retired for many years, and don't have to pay a mortgage because they've paid that all off. They're given a triple lock on their pensions. They've got a final salary pension, something that's never going to happen again. And their grandkids, who should be better off than them, are demonstrably worse off financially, economically. They are worse off societally. They are worse off. And so you're getting a generation where it started as working class. Within a generation, it had gone to middle class. And within another generation, it had gone back down to being working class again. And I'm using the term working class in a way that I know might infuriate some people watching this who see themselves as as working class. And I completely get that. But my point is the lifestyle of someone who is working class compared with someone who is middle class in their 20s right now isn't as different as it would have been 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when there was a real marked difference. Nowadays, both the working class kid and the middle class kid don't have any kind of income that they can rely on. There is no job for life. They can't afford to buy a house, both of them. What's the difference? They can't see any social mobility ever happening to them. The working class kid, the middle class kid. What's the difference? They might, the middle class kid might speak a bit more posh, but that's about it. The issues they're facing are very much the same. Not all of them. And I understand that. And I'm not saying that some kid who grows up in a leafy suburb in Liverpool is going to have the same kind of life chances as a kid who grows up in the wrong side of Kensington. But at the same time, in Liverpool, not in London, Kenny. But at the same time, there are a lot of similarities in the life experience of those two children, or two young people. And then we've got the fact that the sort of the central battlefield of this is housing. Housing has been transformed into a human need, a shelter. One of our basic fundamental human needs. Because if we don't have shelter, we fucking die. If we don't have food, we fucking die. If we don't have water, we fucking die. Okay, so it's something that we absolutely need. It's an absolute essential. It has turned from an absolute essential into a speculative asset for the wealthy middle class people. The ones, a little bit older, perhaps, not all boomers, but a little bit older. And land scarcity has been manufactured through planning capture, through the green belt bullshit. Like, I'm sorry, I know the green belt sounds great, and it was a good idea at the time to stop the urban spread of cities. And I've been to Houston, I've been to Melbourne, I know what urban spread fucking looks like. I get it. But it has been used as something that was a good idea to stop cities just spreading out as far as they can, into something that was used to make the assets that were already there, the monopoly board, they don't want to add any extra squares to the monopoly board, because when they hand you the dice and all of the squares are owned by somebody else, you don't stand a chance. And you say, well, can we put some more squares in so I can have an opportunity to buy my own square and put my own house on it? No, Greenbelt. Do you want to destroy the environment? No, I don't. But at the same time, I don't want humans dying in my country on the streets because there's nowhere to house them. I don't want families living in B&Bs because there's nowhere to house them. I'm sick of that. That should not be a thing. So yeah, it's not great, but there is a lot of opportunity to build on stuff that is on the suburbs, on the outside, the outskirts, not the suburbs, the outskirts of cities. That is brownfield land that has been somehow classified by some NIMBY Tory fucker to say, oh, well, this is actually Greenbelt. You can't actually build on this. You can't put a house here. I think that's absolute bollocks. It's absolute bollocks. Wasteland. There's wasteland, all the way. You get out the East Lancs Road in Liverpool, you see where there used to be, tower blocks and things that aren't there anymore. And they've just sort of left it, sort of grassed over. And you're like, well, why don't you do something with that? Oh, we can't. It's Greenbelt now. It's Greenbelt. They say it's Greenbelt. But there was something on it before. There was a fucking petrol station on it before. How could you have a petrol station on it and now you can't build a house on it? Probably because the ground is poisoned by the petrol station. But that's another story. But yeah, so we've got the land scarcity, the manufactured land scarcity, the buy-to-let crowds are buying out first-time buyers. And this was a big transformation in the mid-1990s. And people forget that this actually happened. In the mid-1990s, right, up till about 1995, it wasn't possible to get a mortgage for a property that you weren't going to live in, right? So if you already had a house, you couldn't get a mortgage on another property. You could buy it outright if you had the cash, no problem there, but you couldn't get a mortgage on something to let. If you turned up at the bank and said, I want to buy this house next to me, why do you want it? Oh, I'm going to let it out to some students. They would say, no, that's not going to happen. And then in 1995, I think it was 95, the new rule came in that said you could buy to let. You could basically get a mortgage. So you could always buy to let with cash, but you could get a mortgage from the bank to buy a second house that you didn't live in. And at that moment, that is when the landlords took over. And don't forget, in the 1980s, landlords were seen as scum. Landlords, there was a song by Carter, the Sheriff Fatman. Like, landlords, look at the Alexei Sale character in The Young Ones, right? The landlords, people who own properties, were just looked down upon by society as people who generally didn't treat their tenants very well. But back then, here's the thing. Those slumlords, those landlords that we slagged off in the 70s and 80s, Rigby and Rising Damp, they were actually more constrained on how they could treat their renters than people are now. I know the renters charters coming in next year, which is fantastic, and it's a step in the right direction. But don't forget, back then they had rent control. They couldn't do the stuff that they do now. and you couldn't get a mortgage. You didn't have the money to buy a house. You couldn't just fucking turn up at the bank and say, I want to buy a house and I want to put people in it and I want them to work 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, and I want to take half of their wages from them to buy my second house, to pay off the mortgage on my second house. Or even better, I want to take someone who's on benefits. I want to take someone who's, on housing support, on income support. And I want to take the money from the taxpayer that should be going to them to keep those people alive, to keep their head above water. I want to take a chunk of that for myself to buy my second house, or third house, or fourth house, or fifth house. You see these people go, I don't want to have to pay my taxes for it to go to immigrants and refugees. And you're like, well, you pay it to us. Go and fucking, a lot of landlords who are already rich. Yeah, I only want it to go to people who already got loads of money. Miss Paula Thomas, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. First super chat of the Sunday morning. The Green Belt was originally an attempt to preserve the countryside, but is now a straitjacket. Yeah. And I again, it's one of the things that Labour have mentioned that I happen to agree with. And, your mileage may vary, but I do think that this is a good thing that they are talking about building, because we need houses. Because another thing, when we're talking about housing, which was a fucking disaster for society, wasn't a fucking disaster for the people who managed to do this, but... Sorry, just moving my mic. It was the letting people buy their council houses in the 1980s. And it was great for the people who got to buy the council houses. And all things being equal, the money that the council got, when the bank gave them a mortgage, when here you go, council, here's the money, is 25 grand for this house. They should have used that 25 grand in 1987 to fucking build more fucking houses, but they didn't. They didn't. And now there's not enough fucking houses. We've got a shortfall of millions of houses that will need to be built. And your buy-to-let schemes, they need to be stopped. But what it's doing is crowding out the first-time buyers. Rent extraction is replacing productive investments. No one wants to invest in people in this country, which is so frustrating because the people of this country are our greatest natural asset. Don't have any gold. Don't have much oil left. Don't have any tin. What's our natural resources? It's us. It's us. But people don't want to invest in us. People don't want to invest in ideas. People don't want to invest in the arts because they're too busy investing in houses because, oh my God, seriously, I could go into a bank and say, I would like to buy the house next door, which is up for sale. Are you going to live there? No, I'm not. I'm going to put someone else in there and they can pay the mortgage for me. And then at the end of the 25 years of them living there in that house, they leave with nothing. I say good day to you, sir, and I get the house. How fucked up is that? What a fucked up system. Come on, landlords in the chat. Defend that system. I don't think you can. The people go, I know some good landlords. I don't give a fuck. Then there's no such thing as a good landlord. They don't exist. They are taking your money off you in order to pay off their mortgage. They're taking your money, your hard work that you have strived for, that you have worked for, and they are using it for themselves to enrich themselves so that when they retire, they can sell the house that you have paid the mortgage off for 25 years, and they can sell it for a fuckload more. So not only do they not have to pay for the house, they get a free fucking house paid for by someone else. When they get round to selling the house that they bought for £100,000, it's now worth £500,000. That's nice, isn't it? That's lovely for them. Good job, landlords. You did great. Well done. Fuck. My landlord's lovely. Didn't put the rent up. Yeah, there shouldn't have been any rent. They should have paid you to look after their asset. They should have paid you to look after their property, to open the windows so they don't get mold. They should be paying you to make sure that it doesn't go on fire, to make sure that there's no squatters, to make sure that no one breaks in. Or if someone does break in, they'll tell you immediately. That's what a landlord should do. And maybe you could make an argument that the person living in the house, maybe they should pay for the carpets, maybe they should pay for the decoration. whatever, because that's going to be, used by them. But when it comes to the actual house itself, fuck off. Fuck off. What the fuck? Imagine your neighbour knocked on your door and went, hey, yeah, listen, I know you've been working really hard this year, but how much did you earn? Oh, I earned 30 grand this year. Okay, so I was thinking of building an extension out the back of my house, like a little conservatory. Oh, that's nice, yeah. Can I have 15 grand of your money? What? Can I have 15 grand of your money? And I'll tell you what, I'll let you come into the conservatory once it's built. What? Yeah, well, I might let you into the conservatory. I might just chuck you out at any time, really. I mean, it's up to me. I mean, you don't have any rights, but could I just have half your fucking money so I can pay for an extension from back of my house? What would you say to your neighbour? If your neighbour said that, you'd be like, what the fuck? No, fuck off. I'd be mad. That's the situation we've got with landlords. And then we've got the upward mobility. Professional employment no longer guarantees security. You've got people with degrees working in doing the same jobs as working class kids in McDonald's, in Starbucks, trying to get their feet on the ground. The degrees no longer guarantee status, which it's not the fault of the number of people getting degrees, really. I think that more people, whoever wants to go to university, should be allowed to go to university. But what's happened is you've had this big glut of middle-class kids who have gone to university and are now saddled with this huge amount of debt and come out of university in a society that treats them, for all intents and purposes, like working-class kids. Only they've got £50,000 worth of debt to pay off. And for the first time in generations, children are poorer than their parents. I don't think this has ever happened, actually, in modern times. Children being poorer than their parents. Maybe during the Black Death. No, actually, that's not even true. Because during the Black Death, people made loads of money because there was, half the population got fucking wiped out, didn't it? Social ladders have been pulled up, left, right, and centre. Last week, we saw the unedifying fucking display of Martin Kemp's kids claiming they're not nepo babies. Oh, don't like being called nepo babies. And also Kate Winslet saying, my children are not nepo babies, in this film that I've got coming out about some woman dying of cancer at Christmas and crying a lot. And it was written by my son or my daughter. I don't know, but I hate it when they call them nepo babies. They're not. They've worked really hard for this. Okay, don't call us nepo babies. You are fucking nepo babies. In a just world, that'll be fine. You'd have the same opportunities as everyone else, but you don't. You have all the opportunities. As we see, simply, if you ever have this conversation with anyone, if you have this argument with anyone about how the rich and the privileged rule over us with an iron fist, take them to privateschoolmafia.com. Just show them that list. Just begin to show them that list. Just start scrolling down. There's nearly 1,300 household names on that list. 1,300 names on that list. I don't think you could make a list of household names that long of kids who went to fucking state school. But 93% of us went to state school. So yeah, social mobility, children poorer than the first time in generations, poorer than their parents, certainly poorer than their grandparents. Social ladders pulled up after the elite has climbed them. And this meritocracy that we're supposed to live in, it's just a myth. It's just a myth. Meritocracy. I mean, I don't mean to do myself down, but all things being equal, if there was a meritocracy, I think I wouldn't be, necessarily here this morning talking to you lot. I might be. I don't know. I don't know what would happen. But I do feel like I've hit some glass ceilings in my time and I've done a lot. Just saying. I realised after yakking on for bloody ages like Yakko Warner, I have not set a timer for some spondoolies. So I'm going to just put in confetti. It's nearly Christmas. And I might have a bit of a fucking weird week, weird couple of weeks now in the build up to Christmas where I'm going to be going to Liverpool and traveling around the country and doing all this stuff. So I don't know if I'm going to be too on it like I normally am. So I'm just going to put in a confetti challenge. 5 super chats, any colour. You got 45 minutes, so no worries. Good morning from a very wet Butte, says Yuri Infectinov. Yeah, cool. Blue Badger says, Graham, I know only one. My wife is disabled and there was no housing available. I asked my mother-in-law to help us start a mortgage. She bought the house and is renting it to us. Universal Credit, no, said Kay. Yeah, that's slightly different. I mean, I understand that as a way of making sure you got a roof over your head and you couldn't get the mortgage, so someone else got the mortgage for you. That's a family thing, and that's something that I think would be allowed under my system, which is that you can't rent to strangers who are on benefits and take their money off them and use it to feather your own nest. That's what they do. Being a landlord's not a job. I hate this idea. Like, oh yeah, I work very hard as a landlord. No, you fucking don't. No, you don't. Don't be daft. You don't work 9 to 5 as a fucking landlord. You don't get up in the morning, you're working all morning, you're working all night on the fucking properties. No, you're not. You might do a bit of work at the start when you buy it, bit of DIY. Get the kids, pay them a tenner to paint the walls. That might happen. But once it's fucking built, what's there to do? If there's a fucking flood or a fire or something, you call out the emergency services or the plumber or something. You don't do it yourself. I've got to make a phone call once every, 9 years. I've got to make a phone call. Fuck, wow. Fucking hell, man. Jesus, you have to make a phone. You had to arrange stuff. I had to pay someone to come and paint the walls. See, another thing about housing is, it's like, you got someone living in there, they do all the maintenance, they do all the cleaning. They don't allow the mildew to build up, generally speaking. I mean, obviously there's some slumlords out there who don't care about the mildew and the bats in the belfry and the windows are jammed. Eat more landlords, says Jez Hunt. Absolutely. Good morning, says, that's from Jez Hunt. Good morning from Cavan Lad for the Confetti goal. Thank you so much. And Ms. Paula Thomas with another super chat. Thank you. In 1939-ish, there were about 250,000 people living in an area of London which can walk the long axis in an hour. That's what we are going back to. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We are. So, yeah, I want to talk about Russia. I want to talk about Russia for a moment. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about Russia for? Well, Russia had a feudal society until the revolution of 1917. The first revolution, there were 2 in that year. The first one doesn't get talked about much. It was a democratic revolution. And when the Reds came along, they didn't topple the Tsar. The Tsar had already been toppled by the people who wanted democracy. It was the people who wanted democracy who were toppled by the Soviets. The Soviets came in and they created a system that was feudalism, where there was a handful of very, very rich people in the party apparatus who had absolutely everything, had beluga caviar every morning for breakfast. They swanned around in gold-plated cars, and everybody else didn't have a fucking pair of potatoes to rub together. And then fast forward to the 1990s, the Berlin Wall had come down, the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia became Russia again. What happened very quickly is that oligarchs bought up the state apparatus, the big companies, the big oil companies, and here we are in 2025, and there is a handful of very, very rich people in Russia. They used to be called the lords, then they were the Soviet elite. Now we call them the oligarchs, right? They basically just fucking have never gone away, and everybody else doesn't have 2 potatoes to rub together, are being sent into a fucking war machine to be ground up like meat. The Soviet system centralized power without ownership, so no one owned anything. And the 1990s privatization created oligarchs, not citizens. And it's got a very, very weak middle class, which has enabled the authoritarian consolidation of Vladimir Putin's government. And Putin's regime depends on dependency and fear. And this is what they want to export westward. Look at the way that oligarchic wealth concentration is being normalized. Look at the way the media capture blurs the truth and blurs the line between truth and propaganda. Look at the way democracy has been hollowed out in many countries. Look at the way that the economic insecurity, which is breeding political apathy, and strongman politics flourishing in this, without the middle classes actually doing anything about it, because the middle classes because they're fucking deranged. I think a lot of people who are in the middle class, who are older people who've done very well for themselves, still see themselves as working class. So they join with the posh people at the top, the likes of Trump and Elon Musk and Nigel Farage. They join up with them. They vote for these people in order to destroy the middle class, which they do not believe they're part of. Not realizing that by doing that, they are condemning their own grandchildren to a shit fucking life. And you can look at Brexit, you can look at the rise of Trump as a conspiracy between the working class and the toffs. The working class, horny-handed sons of the soil, joining up with the tech bros in order to put very, very, very powerful people in charge and make loads more money for people who are already multimillionaires or billionaires. But also you can look at people who are middle class, who do not regard themselves as middle class, and there's a lot of them out there. You've met a lot of people who are like, I'm very working class, because I've only got 3 houses. I mean, come on. And I'm like, you don't know what it's like. You have no idea. You have no fucking idea. Why do you think that every fucking movie we make in this country is either about, rich people, swanning about being rich, whether it's, all the way back in time to, Bridgerton or whatever, back in the day, Pride and Prejudice. It's about rich people, isn't it? Gosford Park, it's all about rich people. It's what rich people do. And then, fast forward to today, Bridget Jones, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Notting Hill, they all exist. Love Actually, they all exist in a world where everyone is tremendously well off. No one has any financial problems in these particular movies because the people making these movies are very posh themselves. They're very, 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 very posh themselves. They all went to private school. They make films about themselves. And when the posh try to make movies about the rest of us, what does it look like? It's either a fucking gangster film where we're all fucking criminals, or it's a kitchen sink drama where someone gets cancer and dies, or someone gets beaten by the husband and then dies, and everyone ugly cries till the end of the movie, and no one goes to see that film because why would you spend 15 quid to go and watch a movie that's just going to make you fucking depressed? I don't know. Some people do. Some people, I don't know. They go to watch a really miserable movie, where Ray Winston plays someone who beats the crap out of someone and they die. Everyone cries and they go home and listen to Radiohead. I don't know. And then they go, oh, I'm happy now. I'm in my happy place. Never more happy than watching a depressing kitchen sink drama about working class people and how the upper class view us or view the working class. And then we've got the I mentioned Trump and Musk and Farage. So let's get into that. Trump was a landlord, inherited wealth. His dad was a slumlord who was a racist slumlord, and so was Trump as well. They wouldn't rent to black people. Inherited wealth insulated him from all consequences. If you've ever seen the movie American Psycho, Trump is a fat American psycho. Someone else clears up his mess. He goes around killing as many people as he likes, butchering them to death, and he always gets away with it because someone else is clearing up. And maybe in his head it's real, maybe it's not real. It doesn't matter. He's got someone clearing up his the shit that he has done. Someone else is mopping up that pool of fucking blood. And then you've got his stance, which is anti-union. He's standing there with like people from the unions saying, "Oh, I'm gonna fucking destroy you," and the union leader's like, "Yay!" It's really fucked up. Anti-regulation, anti-redistribution. He rewards loyalty over competence in state institutions. So you're getting the most incompetent nepo babies running everything. The democracy over in America is being reframed as his personal rule. He sees himself as a king. He blatantly sees himself as a king. When there was a no kings protest against the fact of America having kings, he did an AI video of him dressed as a king, flying a jet, and pouring shit over the demonstrators. Yeah, this is where we are. And also, he weaponizes the politics of grievance, which is, to someone like me, it's so fucking evident what he's doing. It's so fucking obvious. It's painful. And yet so many people can't see it. He's protecting elite interests. That's it. That's why he weaponizes grievances. But what people have in their head is like, oh, there's a family living over the road and they don't speak English. Or there's a family living there and they're not white. There's a family living there and they're a different religion or no religion. And they're getting all this stuff. Look, they're doing quite well. And a lot of the time, they're not even doing that well. They're just existing, really. But the fact that their existence upsets the people who have nothing in their lives to feel proud about except the circumstances of the time that they popped out their mum's vagina. That's it. That's the only thing they can feel, oh my God, I was in that particular town at that particular time, in that particular part of the world, with this particular skin colour. Yeah! I've made it. Someone had put on Facebook the other day that they had a list. I was probably on Twitter or something. They had a list of the percentages of white people in America, and it was like 90%, and it was like 89% throughout the years, and then it went down to 80% or something, white people. And someone had written as a response, and it had the year, so it had like 2025, and it's gone down to like 70% or something. And someone put at the bottom of it, because it's all this white replacement bullshit, 1492, as in the year, 0%. Zero. There were no white people in America at that time. Just saying, they went wrong. Anyway, so yeah, then you've got Musk, who is he's trying to put out this model of techno-feudalism along with Peter Thiel, JD Vance, Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, and all these tech bro fucking gobshites. They want private ownership of essential digital infrastructure. They want workers treated as disposable inputs. They want their platforms to replace public squares and they to decide what goes on them. Free speech is subordinated to the owner preference. You'll get Elon Musk going on his Twitter saying free speech, free speech, free speech. And yet, if you use the term cisgender, it's taken down as hate speech. So that happened. And corporate power openly positioned above democratic control. The only thing that can rein in these companies is the EU. This is the only one big enough and ugly enough to fucking do it. Actually, China as well. Don't forget, Facebook is banned in China. They have the power to do it as well. We could do that. Hang on a sec. I need to just write something. You've got Trump, you've got Musk and his techno mates, you've got Trump and his political mates and his landlord mates, and in this country you've got Farage, who uses cultural rage as economic cover. This is a man who is privately educated, posing as an outsider, a guy who's taken off the fucking the Tory politicians who aren't politicians anymore because they lost their jobs in the last election into his party. But it's not the Conservative Party. It's not the Tory. It's completely different. It's just got all the same faces and all the same people saying the same old shit. But, they're a new thing. They're a new thing. The Tories have done this for generations, Every time the Tories got a new leader, when they got 5 new leaders in the space of about fucking 7 years, each time a new leader came along, they said, this is a whole new party now. It's Theresa May's party. It's not the Conservative Party of the last guy, David Cameron, and then she got ousted and Boris Johnson was put in their place. Oh, this is the party of Boris Johnson now. Oh, and then it was the party of Liz Truss. Then it was the party of Rishi Sunak. The Daily Express, for all of those politicians, said, now's the time to get behind ... Yeah. But they've done this for ages. They've done this for generations. They've gone, oh, we're not very popular. Let's just put a new leader in charge and then people will be popular again. And refuck is just an extension of that. It is just an extension of that. What the fucking fuck is this? Sorry, I just got a message saying, don't ever do that again. I just got a message saying that I need to talk to Gemini. Oh, hi, I'm from Gemini. I'm your friendly fucking Gemini AI person. Fuck off. I don't want you. Delete. Anyway, so Farage, deregulation. He wants deregulation, sold as national liberation. He's sold leaving the EU as a freedom, as a day of freedom. The press that he's in cohorts with, because they all went to school together, regarding the day after the Brexit vote as Independence Day. And migrants are blamed for fucking everything. Trans people are blamed for everything to protect landlords and donors and oligarchs. And economic submission is master sovereignty. The fact that we've lost £1 trillion. And it's actually a lot more than that, because I say £1 trillion, like, whatever. But that's just the economy, right? Before all this began, back in 2019, we'd already lost £1 trillion worth of assets that had been moved out of our banks in this country and moved to banks in Frankfurt, in Dublin, in Paris, in Amsterdam. That money had been moved. And some dickhead said to me, "Oh yeah, money moves all the time, Graham. What are you talking about? It's just banking in it." No. Barclays had to go to the High Court in London to ask if it was okay to move the 200 billion with a B, that is a fifth of £1 trillion euros worth of assets out of London and move it to Dublin. Or maybe it was HSBC, one of them. I think it was Barclays. Just what the fuck? So yeah, 2 trillion. 2 trillion so far. Stack that up in £50 notes, 5 times higher than the International Space Station. 5 times higher that stack would be. I've really got to make that animation sometime where, like they do on the Corridor Crew, where they show the size of Godzilla or the Titans in Attack on Titan or something. Just that's what we need to do. So yeah, Farage he serves the interests of the oligarchs while claiming populism to the detriment of the middle class. The middle class who support him. You're like, what are you doing? He's trying to dismantle the middle class. And the thing is, the problem is that a lot of people who are in that position where they've come from a working class background and now they own a house and they're on a nice final salary pension and they're doing quite well in their 70s and 80s, they are sitting on so much wealth and assets, and they're like, I don't care. I don't care about the future. And I've spoken to people who genuinely, they've got grandchildren, right? And they say, I don't care. I won't be around. I won't be around. I won't be around to see the ice caps melt. I won't be around to see more storms and more flooding and more forest fires and people dying violently for no good fucking reason. I won't be around. Yeah. Really fucking grim. Really fucking grim. Reem Ibrahim last week talking about economic freedom fighters. I remember when we used to call them pirates and criminals. Yep. The second attacker has been shot dead by New South Wales police, but no details have been released. New South Wales are looking into whether a third attacker was involved. Talking about what's happened in Australia today. Ordinary person Richard Rubel Tice is the director of property companies, including Enjoy Your Retirement Limited, Thyssen Investments Limited, and Quidnet REIT Limited. If you're going to be an MP, you should have to give up all of your holdings. That's it. You should live as a pauper. It should be like joining a fucking monastery. Take off all your clothes. Here you go. Wear this fucking hair vest, you motherfucker. That's the way it should be. A senior advisor quits from Rachel Reeves, says Chris. No, that's not great, is it? But probably needed, because the way they handled that fucking that budget was just insane. Absolutely insane. Anyway, so let's talk about techno-feudalism. This is ownership being replaced by subscription. So now we don't own anything. Think about your records, think about CDs, think about VHS tapes or DVDs. You don't own that stuff anymore. You just got Spotify. And don't jump in the chat and say, I don't have Spotify, I just have CDs. But look, people, you have Amazon Music, you have Netflix and Amazon. So you're basically not owning anything anymore. It's a subscription. I don't own Adobe software. I subscribe to it, and they can jack up the price of it whenever they like without any notification, which they did 3 months ago. And then you've got, people's rights replaced by terms of service, where you have this fucking 117-page document that you have to agree to before you get to send that message on that particular platform. You're not going to read it. No one's going to read it. Like, who's going to read that shit? And if you don't want to do it, you can't use the platform, so you can't respond to whoever's just messaged you on it. We've got, Labour is now more and more being managed by algorithms. Look at the people working for not just Uber, but Amazon. And wealth is being extracted through rent, data, and attention. So selling advertising, selling your data, and basically taking rent off you, which is there to feather the nests of the already rich. That's why rent exists. It's to make the bourgeoisie even fucking richer than they already fucking are. And then we've got, political participation is being reduced to noise on the internet, just slop. It's like political slop. That's what we're dealing with right now, where people have these, they have their little thing that they go on and on and on about all the fucking time. And they don't do anything about it. They just like to complain about it on social media. But that influences other people in the way that they vote. And so because of all this political slop and not actually getting shit done, it fucks me off, I want competence. I want competence. That's what I desire in my political people. I want them to be competent. I want them to be good at their job. There's a lot that I would agree on with a lot of the MPs in Parliament right now. None of the fuckers. Not many of the Tories, I don't think. But, the vast majority MPs, whether they're Labour or Plaid Cymru or SNP or Lib Dems, Greens, well, I think we agree on most things. It's probably one thing that they want to do that I'm a bit like, but I'm not. As you know, I'm quite I'm not absolutist about these things. I go, oh, you don't do this one thing that I want you to do, so you can all fuck off forever. But it's there's a lot of people who are just their participation in politics now is just parroting the lines of the likes of Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson, Tommy 10 names, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, guy who's been to jail, a criminal. Adobe subscription is why I use FOSS alternatives. Thanks very much to Paula Thomas for that. Yeah, it is a bit grim, isn't it? So yeah, techno-feudalism, rights replaced by terms of service, labour managed by algorithm, wealth extracted through rent, data, and attention, and political participation. No one's going to town hall meetings anymore, or talking to their MPs or getting to know their councillors. It's all just going on social media and barking into the abyss. But also because the tech pros, the tech oligarchs can manipulate that data to make you more and more angry. Rage bait is the word of the year. Because they know there's more interaction, they'll spend more time on their platform, and the longer you spend on their platform, the more advertising they can send to you. So having people in charge of countries that piss people off, like Trump and Erdogan and Boris Johnson in our country, it gives them more money that people go on social media and fucking kick off about it. Let's talk about competence. Actually, can I just go on a little side quest here for a moment? Competence, right? I've got a question for you. If it turned out that the people who all got arrested for supporting Palestine action, not supporting the Palestinian people necessarily, but going for the middleman, instead of saying I support Palestine, I support Israel stopping its human rights atrocities that it's committing. They go for the middleman. They go, I support this entity, right? If you found out that all those people who got themselves arrested were actually being paid by the Israeli government to make people who don't want the horrific things that are happening in Gaza to happen, would you be that surprised? Would you be like, woo, wow, didn't see that coming? My God, those crafty Israelis doing that to make people who support Palestinian rights look bad. But I also think the same way about Just Stop Oil. If I was told that all the people in Just Stop Oil, there's quite a few toffs involved in Just Stop Oil, very, very rich, privileged people who could spend a few years in jail and get out and still have a house over their heads, roof over their heads. They wouldn't necessarily be living on the streets like a lot of working class people who go to jail when they get out. If you found out that they were being paid by big oil to make people who care about the environment look like fucking lunatics, Would you be surprised? Would you? Really? Would you be like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense, because they did make us look like lunatics. They did make people who were concerned about the environment look like fucking lunatics. And then talking about competence, your party. What if you found out that those fucking MPs were being paid by refuck or by I don't know, Elon Musk or Vladimir Putin to make the left look incompetent, to make us look like a bunch of fucking idiots who couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery, who spent 5 months debating on the fucking name of the party, and the name of the party they come up is your name, which was the name of the fucking party when they got started. That they had their first conference in Liverpool, and one of the founders of the party boycotted the first day because people weren't allowed in. Are you trying to make the left look as incompetent as fuck? Because if you're doing that, you're doing a great fucking job. It's fucking embarrassing. As kids would say now, it's cringe. But would you be surprised to find out that they were being funded by the right to make the left look like a bunch of dickheads? Just saying. So yeah, why are they going after the middle class? Like, why? Why do this? Why would the working class, or the people who think they're working class, team up with people who wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire to destroy the middle class? Well, because the middle class demands accountability. Economic security enables political participation. It reduces fear. People who are middle class are less fearful. This is why the tabloids that they read for years had to create boogie men, boogie women, boogie monsters. Blame it on the boogie for people to be freaking out about from one day to the next. Oh my God, there's a thing happening. You pick up a newspaper from 20 years ago and have a read through it about all the fucking, the panics that they're having about certain things. It's just like, really? This is what you were panicking about 20 years ago? We're still doing it now. We're panicking about what toilets people use. That's something that people honestly stay up at night, fucking in a cold sweat, thinking about. Oh my God, what if the person uses the wrong toilet? Okay. What if there's a woman who wins something in an athletics competition that I don't give a fuck about, and she doesn't look particularly feminine? Well, my idea of westernized, fucking standardized beauty standards. Yeah. Do you know what else as well? Asset ownership reduces compliance. One of the reasons why people are not willing to really put their arse on the line is because if you miss a mortgage repayment, if you miss a rent payment, you could end up on the streets. Literally, your whole family could end up on the streets. There are so many abusive relationships at the moment, toxic relationships that women are trapped inside. They're trapped inside these horrific relationships, and they feel like they can't leave because if they do, they've got kids. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to stay? That's why sheltered accommodation, where women's refuges exist. But this is part of the deal. This is part of the new social contract that we have, that everyone lives in fear because, as I keep pointing out, people who live in fear make bad decisions. When you are scared, when you are terrified, you make bad decisions. You just do whatever you panic. Panicked people do not consider all the options. And they know this. They know this and they fuck us for it in every way. Resloy, thank you very much for your £10 super chat. It's very kind of you. Graham, I don't get to watch your live content very much due to work and family. Happy Christmas to you, the lovely cat and kids, and thanks for all you do. You are by far my favourite YouTuber, Kieran. Oh, thank you so much. That is really kind of you, Resloy. Thank you so much, and Merry Christmas to you too. Yeah. So just why are they going? Why are they going after education? Education reduces susceptibility to propaganda. The more educated people are, the less likely they are to vote for Trump. The less likely they are to vote for Brexit. The less likely they are to read moronic newspapers like the Mail and the Sun. Yeah. And The idea of having independent citizens who aren't living in fear because they've paid off their mortgage, and if they go in to see their boss on, Tuesday afternoon, say, "Oh, you're at that pro-European, you're at that pro-EU march at the weekend. I'm going to sack you now." They could say, "No, you're fucking not, because I've got a strong union behind me, and you can't sack me for something like that for having a different political view." And people have that kind of security when they know that when they go out and strike, they will be paid. They will get money off their union. You're more likely to strike. You're more likely to fight back. You're more likely to make a stand. And also, it's time. One of the biggest thieves of our generation are these Brexit motherfuckers. These Farages and stuff, and Trump. They steal our time. They steal our time away. We're not here long. We're here for a good time, not a long time. But for a lot of people, we waste so much time talking about and writing about these motherfuckers, these weapons of mass destruction, and we don't spend as much time with our families and our friends. It really fucks me off that I see Trump's face more than I do my mum's. She lives in Liverpool, so I see my mum, once a month. I see Trump's face 3 times before I get out of fucking bed in the morning, and his face is disgusting. It makes me want to fucking vomit. He's so ugly. He's so disgusting. He's such a disgusting fucking human being. Jabba the fuck, Baron Harkonnen. He is just a piece of fucking shit. Can't wait for the big, beautiful day to come. But it's a thief of time. And what else is a thief of time? Is the fact that to keep your head above water in this day and age, if you think that you're middle class, you're working 3 jobs, if you got kids, you've got to put them through kindergarten, you've got to put them in nursery and stuff to keep them, keep them safe somewhere while you're working your 3 fucking jobs. You get home, you cook dinner, you try and have any hobbies, you try and have any outside pursuits, and you can't because all your time has been gobbled up, even though you are more productive than ever in the history of humanity. You are more productive. And that sounds mad, doesn't it? What about the people, carving away at the fucking mine face? No, you're more productive than they are. I mean, they might be working harder than you, but when it comes to productivity, as in increasing the value of our economy, you're doing a lot more in your job than they were chipping away at the fucking coal. Show me the confetti, screams Paul. I will, my friend, I will. And then Ms. Paula Thomas here with the confetti triggering super chat. The one thing the working class and the aristocracy have traditionally had in common is a hatred of the middle class. Yeah, that is exactly how I feel about this, Miss Paula Thomas. I think you've hit the nail firmly, well and truly on the head. And thank you so much for the 5th of 5 super chats, which means I get to release the confetti. Yay! This is just something that we do on the channel. If you're new here, hello. If we manage to get to the point where we have got all of the super chat goal, we're all good. But yeah, the working class and the aristocracy have traditionally hated the middle class existing, and they are now conspiring very openly, very, very openly, to destroy the middle class, and they're doing very well. They're doing very, very well. Why aren't we talking about this? Because the wealthy, the aristocrats, control the means of communication. Let's call them neo-aristocrats. I like using that term because it changes the way people think about these people. These are people born into wealth and power in a way that you and I will never be. Or we weren't, and our kids won't be. And then we've got the cultural distraction as the whole strategy here, identity conflicts there to fracture solidarity. And you notice it never affects the rich. The stuff that they want never affects them. So what they want to stop us from living and working in Europe is such a good example because they can still do that. Being trans, if you're a trans kid, right, and you're born to working class parents, you're fucked at the moment. They're not allowing you gender affirming care. They're not allowing you puberty blockers. The whole of society seems stacked against you. Whereas if you're born into money, and no diss on the trans kids who are born into money, they can't help, being born into money. But their parents can afford to send them off to Switzerland or wherever it is and get the gender affirming care that they need, that they require. Their parents can pay for it. Their parents can probably smuggle in puberty blockers from the other side of the fucking planet for their kid to take. So being trans becomes the reserve of the upper classes, just like being gay used to be the preserve of the upper classes. And again, no diss on gay people or trans people in general, but for a long time, the upper classes got away with being gay. For a very long time. It was a shock to the system when someone like Oscar Wilde went to prison for having sex with Boise, who was the son of the Marquis of Queensberry, the guy who invented the rules for modern boxing. His son was gay. And the reason why Oscar Wilde went to jail was because the Marquis of Queensberry threw a fucking fit about finding out that his son was in a relationship with Oscar Wilde and made a big fuss about it. Otherwise, it would have just been swept under the carpet. It was just a thing that the aristocracy got on with and looked the other way. Whereas if you were working class at the time, even before then, if you were a serf and you were caught being gay, doing gay things, then you could be put in jail or worse. It was the reason why we think about Oscar Wilde going to jail for that is it was so unusual for someone of his class, someone who moved in his circles, to be done for that. And don't forget, that was the case for a lot of the 20th century as well. That when someone who had a bit of cash, was found out to be gay, they either, pretended it didn't matter. They'll lie about having a wife. They'll have, marry someone to prove they weren't gay. Or what Liberace did, a guy who was clearly fucking gay, he sued the Daily Mail, the Mirror, I think. He sued the Mirror for saying he was gay and got loads and loads of money because they couldn't prove he was gay. And so things that I think should be available to absolutely everyone on these islands who decide that they want to, better themselves and live the true, authentic life, that's being stripped from us. That's being taken from us by the aristocrats who are not having it taken from them. That is my big argument here. Like, we are giving up our rights. Every day they're being chipped away from us. Whereas the aristocrats, they're keeping all theirs. We're not all in this together. That is a lie that was invented back in the day during World War II, where they went, bombs don't discriminate. Yes, they fucking did discriminate. Do you think they bombed the fucking Cotswolds? No, they fucking didn't. They bombed the docks in Liverpool. Who do you think lived near the docks? The people who owned the docks? The merchant class? No, they fucking didn't. It was the fucking workers who walked to work every morning. That's who lived near the docks that were being fucking bombed. The middle class lived in the fucking suburbs, even in the 1940s. The newly built suburbs for the burgeoning middle class. If you were rich, here's something, right? World War II, yeah, everyone had rationing. The Queen ate spam. The Queen Mum, she ate spam, Bollocks, right? If you were rich enough, during the war, you could eat at a restaurant, breakfast, lunch, and dinner every fucking day of the week. You could eat your fill. You could go in the restaurant, and on the menu is a fucking pound of sugar, and you go, I'll have a pound of sugar, please. And you could just sit there with a spoon, eating your pound of sugar. For everyone else, it was rationed. Not for the aristocrats. The aristocrats didn't get bombed. The aristocrats went on the front line. I mean, maybe in World War I, you could argue that a lot of the officer class were aristocrats, but the squaddies, the Tommies, they were all working class. And yes, officers did die, but a fuckload more people fucking died from the working classes. And don't forget, it wasn't just the poor bastards in the Somme. There was also people around here who were forced to work down the coal mines in World War I and World War II to keep the war effort going. A lot of them fucking died. Fucking grim. Those are working class people. And that's the world they want to take us back to. A world where the neo-aristocrats are in charge. They get to control everything about your life. They get to do things that you are not allowed to do. They get to travel the world. They get to host TV shows. They get to be trans. They get to be gay. The rest of us don't. If we get caught, there's nothing down for you. They get to participate in all of the big sporting events. You don't. You do not get to do that. Why do you think Britain wins all of the fucking medals in yachting and horse dressage? You know, bring out the dancing fucking ponies. Why do you think Britain does so well in those events? Well, any event you need equipment for, Britain does really well in those, doesn't it? And then, you know, the Formula One. Was it at the 11th when Lando Norris won the World Championship last weekend? He was the 11th British racer to have won the World Championships. I mean, that is mad. I think the next down on the list for nationalities is Germany with like 3, I think. 11. Why are there no motivators from in the Formula One from Ghana? Hey? Why do you never see any? Amy, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. Trans community meds, HRT, puberty blockers, etc. are comparable with prescription charge, so not expensive. It's just dicey for the latter with current environment. Yeah, Amy, yeah, I get that, but I'm talking about the world that they want to create. They want to make a world in which only the rich can be trans, only the rich can be gay, only the rich can be different, only the rich can indulge in the arts, only the rich can make art. No art for the lower orders. And this is where they are squeezing the middle classes. Certain members of the middle class who are going up into the upper class, into the neo-aristocracy. And there's a lot of us who are being pushed downwards towards the working class. And we are a class-ridden society. We just fucking are. There's no doubt about it. You saw that in the response to the recent budget, where what was the response? This is the benefit street budget. And they workshopped that. The Tories workshopped that with the newspapers, so they all had the same line at the end. You know, that once the budget had been published, once Rachel Reeves was sat down in Parliament after explaining what was going to happen, the first thing, what's her name, pops up and says, Kemi Badenoch, this is the benefit street, referring to a disgusting, what was it called, a reality TV show on Channel 4 about the lives of people living in this street in, like, I don't know, Birmingham or something, who all of whom were on benefits for one reason or another. Just povo porn, demonizing people who are finding life difficult. Let's put it that way. And you may look at me and go, oh, you're bleeding out liberal, Graham. Why do you care so much about these people who don't seem to care about themselves? Yeah, but they've been told not to care about themselves. It's the environment in which they've grown up. But what's really disturbing is those people, those benefit street people, a lot of them are teaming up with the aristocracy right now. Right now. You saw this in the Brexit vote. You saw this in people supporting Nigel Farage. You see it in the villages around here in County Durham. Very, very poor villages, right? Where you'll see a house going for what, £70,000. I mean, that's how deprived this area is compared with somewhere like London or something. And yet, loads of people around here support Nigel Farage. Loads of people supported his party. Loads of people climbing up lampposts to put, Union Jacks on the lampposts to show how much they love Nigel Farage. Look at me, Nigel. Look at me. It's all for you, Nigel. It's all for you. Look at me, Nigel. And they fall off and die. And that's not great. But, I mean, fucking hell. Yeah. And that's really, really grim. But this isn't the first time that the aristocracy have got the working class people to do their bidding. And I don't think it'll be the last, but someone needs to point it out, don't they? Someone needs to point it out. So we've got like culture wars replacing class analysis. Like no one's talking about this stuff. I don't see much about class spoken of in this way online. It's very much like, you know, there's a certain segment of the middle class who are very, very angry with these neo-aristocrats. But there's a lot of middle class people who are like, yeah, I want to be one of them one day, so I'm not going to say anything. And then you've got the fact that they've used these bullshit culture wars against trans people, against migrants, against asylum seekers, against the EU. And the EU was the bête noire. The EU was the worst thing ever invented, wasn't it? Remember? A few years ago, we were all told that. And then we left, and did life get better after we'd left that awful thing? No, life got worse, demonstrably worse for everybody who wasn't already rich. And you see a lot of anger in this respect being directed horizontally. And by that, I mean, you look at people who live on the same street as you, in the same area as you, and you think that you've got nothing to do with them because of their politics, their different politics, or because they're different sexuality, or different, in some way, different skin color, or different religion, or different accent. And so people are feuding amongst themselves. You have this anger, this fury, which is being directed horizontally at people in the same class as us, in the same situation. We're all in the same boat. You have got a lot more in common with your next door neighbor, even if, they're a mad fucking Trump fanatic, or they love Nigel Farage, or, whatever. You've got much more in common with them. A Brexit voter has more who lives in a terraced house, has more in common with the Indian family living next door to that Brexit voter than they do with Nigel Farage. And we're seeing this anger which exists, which is being pushed on us by the tabloids, by the social media, by these means of communication that is dominated by the tech bros and the oligarchs and the neo-aristocrats. And it's so that we are looking at each other and fighting amongst ourselves, and not teaming up and fighting the common enemy. And it's not the popular People's Front of Judea, it's the fucking Romans. Okay? It's the fucking Romans. It's the aristocracy. We need to be looking vertically. We need to be looking up and saying, who is pissing on us? Who is pissing on us from a great height? Who is in that tree shitting on our picnic? Who is it? Oh, it's Nigel Farage. Oh, it's Richard Tice. Oh, it's Andy Wigmore. Oh, it's Aaron Banks. It's Jacob Rees-Mogg. It's Boris Johnson. It's Michael fucking Gove. It's Isabel Oakeshit. It's all of these clanging twat bags. All of whom went to private school, all of whom would not piss on you if you were on fire unless they could piss petrol. And we need to get this message out. We need more in common. We have more in common with the people living next door. Even if they don't have a job, even if they sit on their ass all day playing fucking PlayStation and you work in a fucking bank, you have more in common with them than you do with Nigel fucking Farage. Famous, if you can't get a bank account, if you get turned down for a credit card, right? If you're on Martin's Money Saving Expert and you look at the deals for the, go, oh, great, I'll be able to transfer $5,000 of the money that I owe, of the huge amount of money I owe, I'll be able to transfer it, on a free balance transfer for 18 months if I get this new card. Okay, I'll apply for it. And you apply for it and it says, sorry, your credit rating's too shit, you can't have this card. Can you get that story on the front cover of every right-wing newspaper for a week? Can you fuck? He can. Nigel Farage can. He can get the woman in charge of Coutts Bank sacked and start a national crusade. That's what he wanted to do. A national crusade for multi-millionaires to be able to have a posh bank account. That's what he cares about. Richard Tice just cares about kids not wearing ear protectors in class. So they can concentrate on what the teacher's saying without getting so distracted. He hates that. Fucking hates that. What are the other policies of refuck? Who fucking knows? So these outrage cycles, they're just exhausting. They're just fucking exhausting, and they exhaust public attention. So many people I know have turned off politics in the last couple of years because it's just fucking exhausting. It's just one thing after another. And the structural theft of everything that we should own in this country ourselves just proceeds quietly in the background. Why are we still giving subsidies to landlords? Why are we giving subsidies to oil companies? Why are we giving subsidies to massive supermarket chains because they don't pay their staff enough? Why are we doing this? Why are we topping up the wages of people working for massive $1 trillion fucking companies? Why are we doing that out of our own pocket? And, you collapse the middle class, and then we will just be entering a new period of authoritarianism, techno-feudalism, where you have the haves and the have-nots, and that's it. back to where we were 250 years ago, before the Industrial Revolution. There will be lords and serfs, and I'll be with the serfs. And no, I don't move in those circles to become a lord. My life will be at a detriment for that happening. And you might think, oh, well, Graham, well, you're just looking after yourself there, aren't you? But it's not just me. It's everyone I know and love. The people I hang out with, none of them's fucking Uncle Rich money bags. If they were, I mean, I might ask them to lend me some money. But they're not. And so it's not just me and my family that I'm looking out for here. It's my friends, my colleagues, my neighbours, my old schoolmates, people I know and love, have things taken from them that we used to have. And so many people are looking at this and going, yeah, great, good. That's a good thing you did. That's a good thing you did, Anthony. That's a good thing you did. And that's really grim. And, with the vacuum that is going to be left by the middle class dissolving and becoming either part of the neo-aristocracy or going back down into this sort of tech slave class, you're going to see social trust eroding. You're going to see economic anxiety becoming a permanent feature, which it pretty much has been. They're talking about people my age in their 40s, older millennials, not having a midlife crisis because all we've done our entire adult lives is stagger from one crisis to the next. It was 9/11. Then it was the invasion of Afghanistan. Then it was the invasion of Iraq. Then it was the credit crunch. Then it was austerity. Then it was Brexit. Then it was Trump. Then it was fucking COVID. Then it was Liz Truss's mini budget. Then it was Trump again. It was the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. We just stumbled from one crisis to the other. We're living in an omni-crisis, and political extremism has filled the vacuum of where the middle class used to fight for itself. We seem to have lost the will, because the people who should be fighting for the middle class are like too obsessed with whatever culture wars they're supposed to care about from one day to the next. Or they don't regard themselves as middle class when they are. So you got a lot of middle class people joining with the working class and, signing up to what the aristocracy want us to do. The world that they want to create. And this is nostalgia for a time that doesn't exist anymore, 1950s and 60s, when the middle class was doing all right, when anyone could set up a business and afford a house and afford, you could have a semi-detached house with a couple of kids on one income. You can have 4 kids on one income. And middle classes don't die naturally. They are dismantled, and this is what's happening now. And you could look at it another way, that feudalism never really went away. It's never gone away in Russia, ever. And here in the UK, I mean, it's just been paused. And we're entering the world of techno-feudalism, and we need more people standing up and pointing it out. We need more people to say, hey, what the fuck is going on here? Is this really the future that we want? Where everyone just lives in abject fear all the fucking time because the older generation wants to hoard its wealth and do nothing about climate change. Not all boomers, but enough of them. Way over 50%, which is all you need. And, the question is, do you want to be a citizen with rights, with a decent social contract, where you give up certain rights, but you get something back for them? Or do you want to be a serf, where you give up all your rights and you get nothing back? All you do is you get fear, living every day, scared that you're going to be turfed out on the streets, scared that you're going to be found out for something that you do that, isn't illegal, shouldn't be illegal, but, it's something that should be only the preserve of the upper classes. I'll tell you what else is also the preserve of the upper classes, the way they want it, is abortion. Abortion care. If you're rich in America and your granddaughter gets pregnant, you can fly them to fucking anywhere. Get an abortion, Come home. If you got the money, you can still do it. And Nigel Farage wants to take away abortion rights in this country, right? He also wants to privatize our healthcare system. He wants to move to an insurance-based model like what they have in America, where loads of people who are on Obamacare are going to be paying now over $1,000 a month, just towards their healthcare. Wow. That's on top of the taxes they've got to pay anyway. And that healthcare might not be forthcoming. That healthcare might only be for 3 trips to the hospital a year. Anything after that, they've got to pay for out of pocket. They've also got the reductibles or whatever it's called, where they have to pay for a certain amount, the excess, we'll call it over here. They've got to pay $5,000 towards the hospital treatment for something that wasn't their fault, a disease that they picked up, or an accident that happened because they got hit by a drunk driver, and it bankrupts them. It bankrupts them. And here we are. Here we fucking are. In a world where the rich get to do this shit, the rich get to have abortions, the rich get to be gay, the rich get to be trans, the rich get to travel, the rich get to live anywhere they want in the world. And the rest of us stay at home, stay in your village, stay in your suburb, don't go anywhere, don't get any ideas above your station. Marry your sister, have fucked up inbred children, maybe, probably not because you can't afford them. And these tech bros moaning about the rate of having children going down, the birth rate. Yeah, I know exactly why that's happening, because we just can't afford to have kids. What's a society where you can't afford to have kids? You're looking at societal collapse in places like South Korea, where I think their rate it needs to be 2.1 to the birth rate needs to be 2.1, or the fertility rate, they call it down. The fertility rate needs to be 2.1 to replenish the population that's already there. I think down in South Korea, I think it's 0.7. I don't know. Hang on a sec. Fertility rate, South Korea. I don't want to be giving out misinformation. 0.72. I was right. Everything I say is right. But yeah, it is just fucking crazy. And then think about like food. The rich want it so they can afford the nice food. They don't want you having nice food. They don't want you going to nice restaurants. Why do you think so many restaurants are closing down? They only want a few elite restaurants that they can afford to eat in. They don't want to do anything about the fact that people can't afford decent food for their kids. They don't want to do anything about ultra-processed food. They want us eating that shit. That's why whenever it's mentioned that we should have like a sugar tax, what does Nigel Farage say? Oh, nanny state. It's a nanny state telling us what we can do. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that Nigel Farage smokes prop cigarettes and drinks non-alcoholic lager, because he just wants to kill the rest of us. All the people who support him, who smoke and drink, and go, oh yeah, he's just like one of us because he smokes and drinks, like the axe that convinced the forester he was one of them because he had a handle made of wood. Very much the case that man hates the working class, and he is very much of that clique that would not piss on people of the lower social orders if they're on fire. He is a man who earns over £1 million a year on top of his MP's salary. He is a man who travels around in a private motherfucking jet everywhere he goes. And yet people think that he's on our side. He's on the side of the common man. He is. No, he's not. He's on the side of himself, just like fucking Trump. Feathering their nests. And when the tech bros come over and say, we need more money, because what is the biggest commodity at the moment? Data. And what do they need us for? That data. And isn't it mad that all these twats who support Trump are all obsessed with the Matrix? And they're like, oh, I've taken the red pill. I know what's really going on. You're like, yeah, right. Okay, we're being used like the humans in the Matrix for our data, for our ideas, information, words that we have created to feed the AI, which is making the tech pros trillions of dollars, trillions with a T at the moment, until the bubble bursts, which it might do. Acro Dave sums it up so well in the chat there. The pleasure in being rich doesn't come from having, but in denying others. You are totally, totally correct in that, Acro Dave. The pleasure in being rich doesn't come from having, but in denying others. They don't want us to have champagne. That's why they talk about champagne socialists. They're like, no. I'm not having anyone who thinks that we should have a more equal system having the champagne. That should just be for me. They want all the quails. I mean, look at Nigel Farage talking about them eating swans. Did you remember that a few weeks ago? They're eating the swans, he said. They're eating the swans. Yeah, only the rich can eat the swans. Only the Queen can eat the swans. Only the Queen can wipe her ass on a swan's neck. It's just there. No one else. Apparently, Labour breakfast clubs are being allowed just 58 pence per child. How can you provide a decent breakfast for 58 pence? Yeah. Well, let's have a think about this. Bowl of cereal. You can get a pack of own brand cornflakes or something for about £2 for a big box. Not Kellogg's, obviously that costs a bit more. Pint of milk, say it's 60p. You wouldn't use an entire pint of milk. Probably use maybe a third of a pint of milk, so 20p for the milk. And then the portion of, yeah, you could do that. You could do that with cereal. Yeah, I don't think you're going to get too many cooked meals for that. I don't think you're going to get too many sausages and bacon and eggs. Oh God, making myself hungry now for full English. I thought it's funny, like, just to go on a little aside for a moment. People in America going, isn't it weird that people in Britain say they're going out for an Indian, they're going out for a Chinese, and it's like, yeah, an Indian meal, a Chinese meal. It's just, that, we also talk about going out for a full English. We know what it means. It's English breakfast. But yeah. You can't provide a good meal. It's lip service, and for many, many kids, it's better than nothing they'd otherwise get. It's fucking gross how kids are treated. Well, yeah, I mean, I'd rather a kid had a bowl of cereal to start the day than nothing. Graham, the schools are tied to using their current catering suppliers, says Chris C. Well, that sucks. And Lost Mystery says, Chris, you employ 30p Lee as a dinner lady. Yeah. 58p has to cover not just the breakfast food, but also staff costs, building costs, etc. Seriously? Hang on. So if you've got a school with 100 kids going in, 100 kids, right? And so they'll just get £58 off the government. £58 to provide a breakfast club for 100 kids. I can't see how that could possibly be the case unless I'm doing bad mathematics here. £58 to cater for 100 children. Yeah, okay, well, I'm flabbergasted if that is reality. That just seems a bit to me. If that's for everything, if that's for the wages, that wouldn't pay for the wages for like 2 staff. And then you got the heating, you got the building, you got the cleaners, you got the washing up. Is that reality? Really? I mean, I'm gonna have to look this up now because I'm just a bit. What, you get £58 for 100 kids? Is breakfast clubs labour per child? Labour's new free breakfast club rollout. The government provide from April next year. They provide £1 per child per day rate plus £25 daily flat rate for staffing admin. But this varies. A 25. So that's it. They just get £25 per day for staffing and admin. What the fuck? What? Seriously? Okay. Well, I mean, that would be £125 for 100 kids. And it's like, yeah, including 60 pence to £1 per pupil in older schemes, insufficient for staffing and food, leading some to pay £1 a day or more, while the IFS estimates that it's going to be £55 to £110 per pupil annually for different models. So it's a £25 per day fixed admin and staffing regardless of attendance. So a little village school with 8 kids gets £25, and a school with 100 kids gets £25. This looks mad. This looks absolutely mad. Everything you know about school, free school breakfasts. Sorry, I shouldn't be doing research while I'm doing a show. I'm just a bit flabbergasted by this. Mainstream schools, £25 a day guaranteed, no matter how many pupils attend, plus £1 per pupil per day that attends the free breakfast club. And special alternative provision schools get £18.95 a day, but £3.35 per pupil per day that attends the free breakfast clubs. Also, schools new to the program will also receive a £1,000 startup grant to purchase the equipment and materials they need to run their club. All schools who are eligible will be contacted directly. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, if it's just a case of opening up the school and giving the kids a bowl of cereal, then I can see how that can be done. If it's cooking anything, kind of fucked. £125 won't cover the cost of staffing and building costs, let alone the food. Unquiet in the time of the old alliance between France and Scotland, the poor ate oysters and drank claret because of its cheapness. Yeah, it's always amused me about oysters. It was like the food of the working class, wasn't it? And the Marboyle's oyster bar in Liverpool, they used to have like a barrel at the end of the bar with oysters in it, and you just grabbed an oyster and ate it raw. You can't provide a good meal, it's lip service, and for many kids it's better than nothing. Yeah, that's a thing. Rosebud Ascendant, I know I've read that before, but it's better than nothing, which is what they're getting at the moment. A school's going to be massively out of pocket by doing this. Because I'm just trying to think of like the cost of staffing. I mean, you've got to have lunch in these schools anyway, and obviously the cooking staff do get there in the morning to start prepping the food for lunch, so they're presumably there anyway, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Breakfast clubs exist already. I don't know how much they cost, but it just means that lots more kids are going to be getting some food in their belly before they start school. Yeah. Okay. One of the issues is that much of the food provided is through monopolistic providers that provide cheap, low quality, super processed food. Yeah, that's not great. That's not great. Snails used to be called wall fruit, were eaten by the poor, and the rich got them, called them escargot, and charged a fortune for them. It's very true. It's like the big uptake in street food now, isn't it? Street food from around the world, which I also loved. I bet they get the same food at private school, says Wesley. Well, I've eaten at Eton College, and the food they get is just chips and stuff. It's not amazing. It's not like they're giving caviar none. Or maybe they were just trying to show off to me when I was there. Maybe they just went, "Oh, we got someone from Liverpool. Just give him the shit, give him the shit out the bin." Because you need a certain adult to children ratio. I think it's currently 1 to 30 at present, and also teachers would need food safety training, etc. All right. Well, listen, Chris and Diz and everyone, we'll dip into this on another occasion, because this is just supposed to be talking about the death of the middle class, which is what I want to talk about today in my Sunday sermon, because the middle class is dying. It's being death by 1,000 cuts, and the upper middle class are trying to morph into the upper class, and the lower middle class, who don't see themselves as middle class, are trying to go back to the good old days of, condensation on the windows and no heaters and being cold all the time and just having a lump of coal to eat for Christmas Day. This fictional hardship they had as kids, they want to impose that on their grandchildren now, who shouldn't be working class, but are being effectively, hit over the head in this way. It's really fucking grim. Anyway, so I'm going to leave it at that. I just feel like we are entering a very dangerous part of the story of humanity. We are quite precarious at the moment, and I don't like that. I genuinely feel like it's 2025. All this shit should have been sorted out by now. In the same way that the hole in the ozone layer was sorted out at the end of the 80s, when all the countries got together and said, let's ban CFCs. I feel like it should have been something that was sorted out a long time ago, and it was just normal and natural for us to use wind turbines and solar power in order to make the bulk of our power and not rely on gas coming from halfway around the world. And we had cars that were, powered on that energy that came from the wind turbines and the solar panels, etc. I thought that with the internet, maybe people might bother researching stuff. With the advent of Wikipedia, they might, try and learn something instead of sticking to age-old tropes and prejudices and the Dunning-Kruger effect and cognitive dissonance. But I realised pretty quickly, it's probably in the wake of September the 11th, when a lot of chain emails were going around saying it was all an inside job and all this bullshit. And I sort of should have realised then, shouldn't I, that this is it, isn't it? This is the world in which we live right now, because people don't want to have their opinions changed. They don't want to have what they see as a fact. They don't want to see it challenged. But it really is to the detriment of us all that we are allowing this to happen. And we're too busy fighting amongst ourselves while the rich are getting so much richer to a horrifying fucking level. A level that very soon, if this continues and we don't make a stand and we don't stop these motherfuckers hoovering up all of the available cash, all of the available assets for themselves, we are going to enter a neo-feudalistic society. The kind that the sci-fi writers of the 60s and 70s warned us about. That's where we'll be. So, not great, but at least we've got time to do something about it. If we choose to do so, watch this space. Okay, I'm going to piss off now. I might come back tonight for a little one-off show, maybe. I haven't decided yet. And if Tan does her show tonight at 8 o'clock or 7:30, please join her for that at Supertansky with 3 eyes. If not, don't worry about it. But in the meantime, I will ask you very, very politely if you would if you would care ever so much. It's Christmas, and at Christmas you tell the truth. No, actually, don't tell the truth. Just give me a like. Give me a like. Give me a like. So, even if you didn't like it, give me a like. And also, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. I know I keep banging on about this, but it's really, really important to keep this channel afloat. We need to have a positive number of subscribers. And I say things occasionally that piss people off, so they fuck off. So the people who are still watching this, please subscribe so we can actually get somewhere on the old algorithm that we are, a slave to the algorithm we are. But yeah. Okay, so either tonight, I might see you later, or tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, bright and early for Morning Brew. Until then, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Hello, Good evening, welcome, and goodbye.